So update 4.0 for Battlefield 2042 has been received very well actually from the community. It's been quite a while since we've had an update that I think everyone kind of agrees is a really good step in the right direction. But the question now is, what's next for Battlefield 2042? This update was really solid, but there is still a very long way to go to get the game to where it needs to be and where it probably should have been at launch. And so today I wanted to go over sort of two little sections of what I think are coming next for Battlefield 2042. At the start of the video, I'm going to be going through essentially some actual like news or little tidbits here and there from the developers that have essentially confirmed some things that are coming in the next few updates. And then in the second half of the video, once we've got the actual like news out of the way, I'll get into just kind of my own thoughts on what I think that DICE needs to kind of focus on moving into the future. If you're new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There's going to be plenty more Battlefield 2042 content on the way throughout the rest of the year. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So, like I said, there have been a few little sort of tidbits on Twitter over the last few days, some of which is actually official from some of the developers themselves, and then some of this is actually a little bit of data mining. So I'll get to the official news first, then I'll touch on the data mining. Data mining is always something you need to take with a grain of salt, so I'll save that for after the actual official news. But either way, the official news has actually been really solid as well. Now, someone tagged Florian in a tweet where they essentially were killed by someone who is invisible, and this is apparently a known bug and it is being worked on, and apparently is already fixed for the next update. So we know we're getting an update in May. We don't really know the extent of what we're getting in that update, but we do now know that there is a fix for the invisible soldier issue, which to be fair, I think is pretty rare. I haven't really seen that myself, but it's obviously that's a very game-breaking issue. So it is very good to hear that's being fixed in the next update, and I'm glad we do have some confirmation on that very early on. Now, something else that was mentioned actually over on the EA Answers website, someone was talking about the end of round screens and obviously the sort of cringy little voice lines that I think none of us really enjoy. And Stratford actually replied and said, "We've heard your feedback on the end of round voice lines and it's something that we're actively reviewing. Expect changes to their style and tone of them in a future update." So that in itself is also some very handy news to know. I would say the tone of the game and, you know, the cringy voice lines and the specialists and stuff like that, that is probably the thing that's been talked about the most in the last few months. There's obviously a lot of fundamental issues with the game in terms of like the, you know, from a design standpoint, there's bugs, the maps aren't that great, stuff like that. But just the tone of the game is, yes, probably one of the biggest issues because it kind of sold itself as this like apocalyptic World War III type setting, and then everyone's all cheery at the end of the game. So I'm glad that they are reviewing that, and I'd imagine we'll probably hear a little bit about that in the next feedback loop because they have confirmed that the next round of feedback loops are going to be in regards to the specialists. So hopefully we hear more about that soon, but like I said, that's already confirmed that they are hopefully going to be changing those in a future update. Now, that is the more official news out of the way. Both of those were, you know, from actual developers, so they're not quite official yet because they're not in the game. I don't think really anything can be official until it's in the actual patch notes and, you know, put into the game, but anything that comes from a developer, that is obviously generally going to be the case. However, we do also have some data mine stuff that is very, very interesting, and I generally don't really cover data mining just because it can often be incorrect. There's so many instances in previous games where people find something in the files that, you know, seems like it's going to add this piece of content or a new character or whatever, and then it just doesn't happen. And so I generally don't touch on this, but I thought this was really worth mentioning because this for me is probably the thing that if they change this will make a lot of people happy, even those who are really, really unhappy with the game. So I'm sure you guys have heard of Temporal. He is essentially the main data miner for Battlefield. And just 8 hours ago as I'm recording this, he put out a tweet saying potential references regarding the rework of specialists in Battlefield 2042's patch 4.0 files. The references are class selection, progress, and level. And then there's also a new in-game class description that says combat medics can increase a unit's survivability through their ability to revive and boost team health. So these little references, they are officially in the game's files at the moment. This isn't something that's just been made up there in the actual files of the game, and obviously there's just like millions of things in the files. So as I always say with stuff like data mines and leaks, take this with a grain of salt. This doesn't confirm anything at all, and even when it comes to class selection, for example, technically there are already classes in the game. It could even be talking about class selection for vehicles, for example. So this doesn't confirm anything. Even the combat medic thing, that could be just talking about like some of the Portal content. There are obviously medics in some of the older games through Portal. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. This does not confirm anything, but I thought it was really worth mentioning anyway, because apparently this is something that's been only found after the patch 4.0, meaning that as easily as this could just be completely non-relevant, it could also be something that they've just added in, you know, hopes to set things up for the future if they do end up changing the specialist back to some sort of class system. So yeah, I thought that was worth mentioning. And like I said, the next feedback loop is going to be surrounding the specialist system, so hopefully we do hear something about that sometime soon. I'd imagine that will actually be probably the end of this month or early next month. We will be hearing their thoughts on what they're going to be doing with the specialist system. Now, just quickly before we end the video, I wanted to go over sort of my own thoughts on what I think they need to focus on next. Obviously, like I said, this update's been really good, and I think everyone kind of agrees that even though the game needs a bit of work, it's in a much better state now. But like I said, it does still need work. It still needs to keep pushing forward. And I'm just going to quickly go through the things that I think they need to add or change in order to help the game keep moving forward. The first and most important thing for me is still a server browser. They've obviously fixed up the scoreboard, they've obviously added voice chat now, and for me the server browser was kind of that final, you know, quote unquote legacy feature that they unfortunately used that word when the game came out. And I really think this needs to be one of the next things, whether it's in the next update or, you know, season 1 or something. It needs to be worked on soon to arrive in hopefully at least the next like 2 to 3 months. The thing with the server browser is the technology for it is literally already in the game. There is a server browser in Portal, and obviously it's not as simple as just copy pasting that code into All Out Warfare and then just working straight away. Obviously there's more to it than that, but the fact that it is already in the game in some capacity, surely it can't be that hard to actually add that into All Out Warfare. And for me, that's a massive quality of life change that, again, should have been there at launch, but it wasn't, and hopefully they can get around to adding that. I would love to have a server browser sort of heading into season 1. It would make the game feel finally a little bit finished, I guess. Something else that is very important is obviously the tone of the game. Now, we've already touched on that in this video. It seems like they are already kind of working on that, and I really hope that they double down on that. Obviously not just changing the end of round screen, but I think the maps really need to have a bit of a tonal shift as well. They have kind of touched on that a little bit with Kaleidoscope by adding more like muddy areas, and they've got like barbed wire fences and stuff like that. So it seems like they are on the right track, but I hope that they kind of just double down on that, and it's not just, you know, one map that gets fixed. I hope they fix all the maps in terms of the tone, as well as obviously all the voice lines and stuff for the specialists, because those, yeah, I don't think anyone enjoys the voice lines in this game at all. The last thing that I think they need to focus on is essentially just getting the game even more stable than it currently is. This update made the game a lot more stable. It is now essentially like a really playable game. I've actually got the itch to go back and keep playing now. I haven't really seen any bugs or had any of those issues where it's just like a little frustrating issue. The game seems to be in pretty much the state that it should have launched in, I guess. And so hopefully the May update kind of just doubles down on that again, and, you know, we get a few smaller bug fixes again, improve the performance and just add to that stability, because I think when season 1 rolls around, which obviously they've said is summer, so probably June or July, I would imagine, when that rolls around, the game needs to be in a good state. If it's still buggy, if there's still a lot of missing features and stuff like that, when they start adding content, it's not really going to help that much, because people will still see those issues. And so yeah, the thing that I think they really need to focus on before we get content is just getting the game even more stable, because I think we really do need content, but I just don't think content will really make a difference if the game isn't in a good state. So those are the 3 things that I think they really need to focus on. Short term, the server browser, the tone of the game, and just obviously the overall stability. And I think if they can get those things done, you know, by season 1 or around the time of season 1, we will be actually in a pretty decent state where once we start getting content, the game's going to be fun and enjoyable, and we'll kind of be back on the right track, because I think we all agree that, yeah, that is what this game needs right now. So that's what I think they need to focus on. Definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys hope they focus on as well. Obviously in the long-term future, there's so many things they need to focus on. They need to add a heap of content, new modes, a bunch of new weapons and all that kind of thing. But in the short term, definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys think they need to focus on. That is going to do it for this one though, guys. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below. And if you are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. If you want to support the content that I make on YouTube, then do consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.